When it comes to a new adaptation we're about to see for Chronicles of Narnia, the villains may be the people that are making this movie. It was several years ago when we heard the report that Netflix had acquired the rights to the Chronicles of Narnia.
Mhm.
And since then, of course, you've heard the jokes about, hey, they're going to give it the Netflix treatment, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Well, it's been a while since that first got announced. And we did know some things about the movie, including who is going to direct it, at least for the first handful of movies. And that, of course, had people a little bit concerned. Greta Gerwig attached to direct Narnia movie. Netflix acquired the film and TV rights to the C.S. Lewis book series in 2018. Now, Greta Gerwig, obviously coming off the massive success of the Barbie movie. And when you look at her, she's an accomplished filmmaker who's done well at the box office also. So, but when you look at what she's made, from Lady Bird to Little Women to Barbie, all of them have very specific messaging, and all of them are geared primarily towards a female audience. And certainly she's been very successful doing that. But the idea that that might be the road that they take with something like Chronicles of Narnia has people very fucking worried. This is one of the most beloved works of fiction from the 20th century, C.S. Lewis's books. And this quote here has people even more worried. Greta Gerwig's Narnia film begins filming in July of 2025. It's a very new take. It's all about rock and roll, says Amy Pascal. They only said two things about it, and both those things are fucking concerning. One, the fact that it's a very new take, and two, that it's all about rock and roll. The first movie that they're going to make supposedly is Magician's Nephew, which is the sixth book to come out, but the first chronologically. That book takes place in 1900. Yet it's
rock and roll.
All about rock and roll. What the fuck are we doing? Everybody that's a fan is already fucking worried about this shit. It's a story that's full of, Christian allegories and themes and things like this.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of turning into a piece of modern day bullshit has a lot of people rightly worried.
Yeah, justifiably so. I mean, when you take, like you said, when you take such a beloved franchise like the Chronicles of Narnia and all these books and with all the Christian theming and stuff, and then you're going to get some of these feminist woke people in the industry, and you're going to give them the helm, and they're in charge of producing and writing this thing, you have absolutely every reason to be concerned and worried, especially when you have these comments. It's going to be a brand new take. And it's going to be rock and roll. What is it, like a musical rock and roll? Like what are you saying, that there's going to be a lot of action? Like, it's very vague of what they mean by rock and roll.
And I think like Magician's Nephew, I think is going to be tough to adapt as the first thing they're doing out there anyway. But that's a story that takes place before everything else, set in 1900. And then everything else basically takes place kind of in the 1940s. But I feel like the setting is very important to the story and where it's at. The idea that they might do an actual like 2020s version of this fucking thing is the most horrifying thing I could imagine, to be honest with you. Now, it's just one quote. Before Greta Gerwig, when she was asked about this, she said, listen, I feel like there's a lot of pressure doing this, and I feel like I need to be very respectful. It's kind of like when Americans do Shakespeare. You feel like there's extra pressure to make sure you're doing it right because it's not your playground. And then the first thing to come out is this, that it's going to be all about rock and roll, and it's a very new take on
very new take
works. Just give people exactly what they want. Just give people an adaptation of these books, not a bastardization of these books. And those are two very, very different things. But yeah, a lot of people love Chronicles of Narnia, and I'm not shitting on Greta Gerwig as a director. Obviously, she's written and directed 3 movies, say, in the past 10 years that have both been critically acclaimed and financially successful. Barbie obviously being the latest one. But all 3 of those have themes that appeal more directly to women than men. All of those are for female audiences in general. And Chronicles of Narnia is something that it is meant to and does appeal to everyone. And I feel like if you go that route with it, it's going to be a very big mistake. It's going to be a very big mistake.
How many gender swaps and race swaps do you anticipate?
I don't know about race swaps, or sorry, I don't know about gender swaps, because I think there's plenty of female characters in the story, and in almost all of these, whoever kind of gets pulled to Narnia for whatever, it usually do have a male and a female companion. Now, there have been allegations of sexism. C.S. Lewis is sexist for having Aslan say something about how all the girls want to do is play with their hair, or some bullshit, right? Fuck that. But you talk about race swaps. Come on, 100% there will be.
Do you think they make Aslan a female lion?
They'll make Aslan trans, I think. Aslan's going to be trans. The White Witch is going to have a very sympathetic, backstory, and she's not really bad or evil.
Right.
It's just because of this. Like, that's the type of shit.
And it'll be because of Aslan. Aslan was the one that oppressed her.
Yeah, that Aslan, in fact, is the reason that the White Witch became evil, and she's just misunderstood. That's the type of shit that I could legitimately imagine happening in this series. A lot working against it.
Oh, boy. Well, we'll see.
The White Witch will be black, someone says. Maybe. That'd be a little on the nose, but you never know.